Welcome everyone to this webinar on information archiving for healthcare with Retain Unified Archiving by Micro Focus. My name is Q Mangus. I'm the Solution Marketing Manager here at Micro Focus, covering the information archiving space. Today we're going to be talking about healthcare initiatives, how archiving can help, the regulations that are involved there, and we're really excited that you could join us here today. To begin with, I just want to touch for a minute on what information archiving is. So traditionally archiving has been, thought of as something where you just store stuff. It's, if you think of documents, it's you take documents, you keep them, paper documents, you keep those saved in a safe location. That of course evolved into what we currently know as email archiving, that as businesses started to communicate using email, businesses realized that they needed to have a location to store all of their email, and so they started this whole genre, or this whole market of email archiving. And that's where you take your email, you store that onto an archive that is separate from the email system, and then you kind of forget about it. It's just sitting in the corner, you checked a box, you said, okay, I'm good, I'm compliant, I have an email archive, there we go. But you know what? Things have changed. That is what we call now kind of legacy archiving. But information archiving, or enterprise information archiving, has now evolved from just that email store to where now you can archive, obviously, email, but you need to archive social media, and you need to archive mobile communication data and instant messaging. So you need to have that all in a central archive. And more than just archiving that data, you need to readily be able to get to that data. And that's really the future of archiving, or next generation archiving, is having all of your electronic communication that deals with business information archived, and then you have the ability to quickly and easily access that information. That's what information archiving really is about, is that having the data store, but then being able to have tools to learn information about what's in there, see what's going on, measure tone of communication on social media, on email, be able to see how your employees are communicating, and get valuable insights into communication data. That's what information archiving is now. So as that as a backdrop, let's talk a little bit about, for healthcare organizations, that's what this webinar is for. What does this mean to you? What does information archiving mean in your world? Let's talk for a minute about the regulations that affect you. You have HIPAA. That's a big one, been around for a long time. Basically, it regulates how you manage PHI, including medical records and payment histories. You need to have a record of all your communication to show that those communications, email, text, etc., didn't have PHI, or if they did, that they were sent through proper and encrypted channels. So that's what HIPAA really talks about, is keeping that data secure, not sharing it via these traditional or via these new ways of communicating, or if you do, that it's encrypted. And then, of course, high tech expanded on HIPAA, and it holds you to a higher level of responsibility if there's ever a breach. And so that's really the big thing, the big two, or HIPAA and high tech. High tech, of course, expands on HIPAA, but you need to be able to, kind of boiling this down, you need to be able to archive information to email, social media, mobile, instant messaging, to show that these communications were proper. And if you do communicate, you need to be able to do it in an encrypted way, and also have oversight on those communications and be able to archive those. And then recently, as just over a year ago, the Joint Commission has revised its position, and now allows physicians and other medical practitioners, licensed medical practitioners, to use text messages to transmit medical orders. Of course, you need to have oversight on those communications, and you need to make sure that they're secure. So that's important. These things are, once again, are the regulations that affect you, that help you to see what you need to be doing and how you need to be doing it when it comes to your communication data. Now, let's hit for a minute on an idea of what you should be archiving. So I talked about those regulations and how they affect you. We know that they're out there. We know that you need to be able to understand them and comply with them, and that there's so many ways in which employees, doctors, others, practitioners, nurses are communicating nowadays. We need to make sure that we have policies to have oversight on that, and that you have technology to support that policy. So with that being said, I want to just give this information here that a recent study was done by Austrian Research showing what types of content is being archived currently. Most organizations are archiving email. Few are archiving social media or mobile communication data. I bring this up to let everybody know that if you're not doing this, don't worry. Many aren't. But worry a little bit, because you need to be able to do that because the regulations dictate that. So if you're not doing it today, you need to get a plan in place to be able to archive all of this type of communication. Because, well, and before I move on to the next one, just remember the idea behind archiving this is, one, to be able to comply with regulations, and two, to be able to manage your data. That's the big part of this. So let's talk a little bit about, so we talked about regulations, we talked about the content that's being archived. Let me give you some advice or some pointers on what you should be doing with mobile and social media, and then we'll jump into the retain archiving solution and how it can help you. So to begin with mobile archiving, we know that they have infiltrated your organization, right? Your employees, the people on staff, are using mobile devices. They're using them for personal communication, but they may be using them to access corporate email. They may be using them to communicate with patients, with doctors. There's a lot of ways in which these mobile devices can be used to communicate, and that's not a bad thing if it's done correctly. And so what you need to do, and the takeaway I would have from this call, and I hope everybody gets from this webinar, is that you need a policy. You need a policy that dictates what should be said on email, what should be done on mobile communication, and what should be done on social media. And everybody needs to understand this policy. There needs to be training on it. Everybody needs to sign off on this policy. And that policy needs to dictate what is appropriate, and it needs to let everybody know that you have oversight on their communication data. And so that's important for this policy, is that you train everybody up, they all know what it is, and then you have a solution to back up that policy, to enforce that policy, and that's where archiving comes into place. And so you need that policy, and then you need oversight of mobile communication. Finally, for mobile devices in particular, if you do have a number of people bringing their own device, you can set something up which is a dual persona, where a person can have personal communication on the personal side, and then they can have a business app to be able to call and text that's separate from personal communication. This is very important for those that may be having people bringing their own device and they want to access their email. They want to communicate using their mobile devices with coworkers or with customers or patients or whatnot. The best way to do that would be to have that dual persona, and I'll talk more about that as we go along. Now, touching on social media, what you should be doing there. Really the big thing for social media is, once again, the policy should dictate what is and is not appropriate. You need to be able to have alerts for keywords, questions, and personal identifiable info. This is essential. You don't want people posting questions to your corporate social account without you being able to ask or answer them. If you have certain keywords that you want to monitor for and make sure that posts aren't going out that talk about these keywords, that's important as well. Also, you need to be able to have alerts for personal identifiable info, so that stuff isn't being communicated via social media. You also need to be able to ensure that all your business social media accounts, all that are official with your hospital or doctor's office, whatever the case may be, that those social media accounts are archived, that you have oversight on what's being placed there, what's being said. And then, of course, if any employees have accounts in which they communicate with patients or in an official manner that represents your organization, you need to be able to archive those and have oversight on those. So that's the best thing to do when it comes to social media, is to be able to archive that if there's any kind of communications going on with that have to do with your organization. So really, that's kind of the backdrop and the information that I wanted to give everybody to know where they should be when it comes to electronic communication archiving. Now let's talk a little bit about the solution that we offer here at Micro Focus, which is Retain Unified Archiving. I'll touch on the high level stuff, and then I'll get into a deeper level on what exactly Retain Archiving is and how it can help you and your organization make sure you're complying with these regulations, that you're managing your data, and that you have oversight on communication. So to begin with, we call it Unified Archiving because Retain archives email, multi-platform email, social media, and mobile communication data in one central archive. And this archive is accessible. We give you the ability to access it via a web interface, an email plugin, a mobile app, or an offline viewer. End users can access their own personal archive. They can perform searches on it. They can browse it. They can restore their own messages back to the live email system. Administrators and other named users can access the entire archive. They can perform searches. They can do e-discovery on the archive, place litigation holds, export information to PDF or PST files or a standalone viewer. And these tools are built into Retain, so it's not like you have to go out, purchase an archiving solution, and then go out and purchase another e-discovery solution. You can have one solution that archives all of this communication data and gives you the ability to search, place litigation holds, manage users, be prepared in case of litigation, and ensure compliance. So this circle here, I'll touch on more of this, but it kind of shows the platforms that are supported, and then just know that that's what makes Retain unique in the marketplace, that it's a unified archive of all of this information in one central location, and it has those built-in e-discovery tools. Now, talking directly about email, so the supported email platforms are Exchange, Office 365, Gmail, GroupWise, and IBM Notes. Additionally, we support Bloomberg Professional, which is, of course, they have an email aspect and then an instant messaging type aspect to that as well. That's especially important for financial, so probably not so relevant here on this call. And then, of course, with Skype for Business, we can archive the instant messaging and attachments there, and that's done through the integration with Exchange and Office 365 archiving. So if you do have that Exchange or Office 365 archiving with Retain, the Skype for Business archiving comes included, and it's all archived in that same central archive. What's great too is that with Retain you can archive a single email platform, or you can archive mixed environments. So if you have, say you're running Exchange and Gmail, or Office 365 and GroupWise, or IBM Notes and Exchange, whatever the case may be, you can simultaneously archive each system, which is great for organizations. This is pretty common for organizations to have multiple email systems. Another thing that's great because of that, because Retain can archive multiple email systems and can do it simultaneously, Retain works very well for migration. So if you want to be able to migrate from one email system to another, Retain can help you with that. What you do is you just make sure that you're archiving your email system in Retain. You deploy your new email system, and now you tie that to Retain, and now all your legacy emails in Retain, and then your current emails being archived going forward. A couple of other things to take note of is with the e-discovery tools, as I talked about, that are included, you also have the ability to redact information. This is really important, especially when we're talking about PHI and making sure stuff doesn't become part of a public record if in case of litigation or regulations. You can redact that personal information. And then, of course, with email archiving in particular, we tie directly to the email system to make sure that we have intelligent archiving. So we'd archive the email, appointments, attachments, calendar items like tasks, folders, and the folder structure is replicated so that when a user goes into their personal archive, it looks familiar to them. And then, of course, when an administrator goes in, they can search that entire archive. So that's email archiving. That's kind of the base there with Retain. And then here's a view of the email plugin. So we make it easy for users to access the archive. They can access it via that web UI, and I'll show that in a minute. They can also access it via an email plugin. And so all they have to do is click on this, retain. They'll be able to pull up their archive, and they'll be able to search that directly from Outlook. And then, of course, messages are cached in Outlook as well for offline viewing. And here's the Web Access Archive viewer. One thing to take note of is this, that the folder structure is replicated over. And so when a user goes into their archive, it's going to look familiar to them. The messages are archived in the folders where they were originally. A user can forward or restore or print messages depending on the rights that are given. Now let's jump into mobile archiving. So that was a little bit about email part. For mobile, there are 3 ways in which Retain can archive mobile, and this is important depending on what your organization is doing. So first and foremost, we have BlackBerry. We know that BlackBerry is still prevalent out there because of its security. So if you do have BlackBerry devices, what we do is we tie directly to the BlackBerry Enterprise Service, and it's seamless to the users. They don't even see that their messages are being archived because it's all done in the background. We'd archive BBM messages, PIN messages, text messages, multimedia messages, phone call logs directly from BlackBerry, and then those are all put into that same central archive with Retain. They're archived in context, so you can go back and see what, the message string there. And then for Android, we put an app on the phone, on the Android device, to be able to archive all text messages, multimedia messages, and phone call logs directly from that phone. So both of those solutions are principally for corporate issued or business issued owned devices. So because it's going to pull everything down. For iOS, we do something different, and this is very important for you, because this is very important for healthcare, and this is an area where this solution is very big. And that's if you have users that are bringing in their own device and it's iOS, we are not able to pull everything down from an iOS device because Apple locks it down. But what we can do is we have an app that sits on the phone, and we partner with a company called CellTrust. And what this app does is it allows you to call and text in an encrypted manner. So what happens is this app is placed on the phone and assigns a separate business number, a mobile number. It doesn't need another SIM card. It's done through the CellTrust Secure Line. And this CellTrust app gives you the ability to call and text, and all those messages are archived. But it also takes it another step further. So you have that oversight, but then it also takes it another step further to where what you can do is you can actually, if it's CellTrust to CellTrust users, so if 2 people have that app on their phone, it's deployed there, so these are for internal communication, it actually is encrypted. So this really helps you comply with HIPAA, because now you can send PHI, doctors can send orders via text messages. That information can be sent via that CellTrust app because it's all encrypted end to end. So as that message is being sent, it's encrypted, then of course it's archived, and then the archive is encrypted and secure as well. And now you have oversight on that, and only named users can access that. So it's all compliant with these regulations, but then you have the ability to really give a powerful solution to your users to be able to communicate. This dual persona is also available on Android, and the idea here for that is that it's both for having encryption, but then it's also if your employees are bringing their own device, they have the ability to keep personal stuff personal, and official communication goes through that mobile business app. And one other thing to take note of is that the communications are only encrypted as long as they're from CellTrust to CellTrust user. If they text outside of the network, say it's just a text message to somebody who's not a CellTrust user, it's encrypted up until it hits the carrier, and then it's not. But it's all archived, so you can have oversight on all that communication. So it's a great solution for mobile devices, especially for BYOD. I'd encourage you to learn more about it and check it out. Okay, so then for social media, this is done in a slightly different way. We have partnered with a company called Archive Social. They capture full resolution pictures, videos, GIFs, and other data formats, and they pull that, and then we pull that into Retain, where it's fully searchable. You can perform e-discovery, place litigation holds. we connect directly to the social media accounts without you having to collect login info. All you have to do is send a URL or visit the connection URL and then make sure that the person is logged into their account. Then it's going to ask that to be authenticated, and then boom, you're off and running, archiving these platforms. And then it's not based on how many platforms you're archiving. The pricing, it's based on number of records. So there are tiers for that depending on the number of records that you want archived. The supported platforms are Pinterest, Instagram, LinkedIn, Google+, Twitter, Facebook, Flickr, Vimeo, and YouTube. All those platforms are archived, and they're all archived in that same central archive with the mobile and email communication. The other thing too, as I talked earlier, is that because the archiving happens in a near real-time setting, there are alerts built into the solution to alert you to certain keywords, questions, and personal identifiable info, and you can manage that and set that up so that when messages are being archived, you can be notified of that kind of information. So once again, this kind of rounds out what we're talking about, being able to archive email, social media, mobile, and do that into the one central archive. Here's an example of the search on the different accounts that are there. And then to kind of finish up, I know we've got about 30 minutes here to finish up. I don't think I'll take all that time, but to finish up, let me talk a little bit about e-discovery, and then I'm going to show everybody kind of how this works in Retain. So some things to take note of I talked a little bit about is that Retain has built-in e-discovery, and I touched on that a little bit, but just to reiterate, that includes redaction, being able to redact information, being able to do searches, being able to place mailboxes on holds. You can place a hold on an entire user. You can place a hold on individual messages. You can place holds on groups so that those messages cannot be deleted even if it meets policy. So Retain does feature policy-based archiving, so you can state as an example that everything older than 30 days is archived in Retain, and then once it hits a certain number of years, like say 7 years, it's automatically dropped off of Retain, so you don't have to worry about that, and you can have defensible deletion where you delete what can be legally deleted, and it's done automatically. But you can also place items on litigation hold so they never get off of the archive until that hold is released. You have an audit trail as well. This is important for compliance where you can go back and see who has accessed the archive and what they've accessed. You have configurable permissions where you can grant different rights to different users, and I'll show you those rights in just a minute. And then of course end users can access the archive, and there's a built-in indexing engine to be able to quickly and easily access the information as it's archived. So a few things that I'm going to show you this archive search and how it works. I'm going to show you the unified archive and how when you do a search, it's going to bring back all types of communication, whether that be an email message, a text message, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And then I won't show this, but here's an example of the archive app. So it's a mobile app that can be placed on the phone, so your users can access their personal archive, be able to search that, and an administrator can access the entire archive from that app. And then of course the other thing I won't show either is this standalone archive viewer, or the offline viewer. So this is where you can take messages that are archived, you can export them, and this standalone viewer can be placed onto portable media, say like a jump drive or a DVD or even Dropbox, and it's fully indexed, so you can hand that off to an outside team. They can search that. Again, they can perform redaction using that offline viewer, and then they can export again to PDF to prepare for court or for a regulatory audit. Okay, so let's jump into the demo really quick here. Let's minimize that. Let's see. Let's go over here. I'm going to close this and this. Okay, so here's an example. I just logged into Retain. Here's what an administrator would see. A user, if they log in, is just going to see their personal archive. Let's talk a little bit about the different rights and roles within Retain. So you can add named users. Of course, an administrator is going to have all user rights. Let me show you that really quick. They're going to be able to access reports, export messages, forward, print, apply tags, delete, manage the system, restore messages to any mailbox, search all mailboxes. So you can see these are the different rights. Now you can grant different rights as well. So say you have an auditor, you could grant them rights to do certain things. Maybe they aren't able to delete. Maybe they aren't managing the server or whatnot. You can grant them different rights. This is important to be able to grant grant rights to other teams. So say you have a legal or an auditor who needs to access the archive. You don't have to give them full rights, and you don't have to rely on IT to be able to do it. You can give them permissions to be able to do that. Then of course you can set up what the user rights are, what they can do, and what they cannot do. Let me show you a little bit about auditing, because this is important for, like we said, for compliance. The auditing gives you the ability to see who's accessed the archive, what they've accessed, generate reports on that. So let's just run a quick report for the last, say, 30 days, showing what has been done on the archive. That'll take just a minute, so I'll move away from that. We'll show you a few other things while we're waiting for that. You have the ability to monitor your retained system really quickly and easily through the monitoring piece. So you can see like what's been going on, what jobs have run, what archiving jobs have run, what's been archived recently, what memory is being used, the disk usage, what happens because Retain supports single instance storage, which is important for especially for Exchange users, because Exchange doesn't support single instance storage, where Retain does, so it'll greatly reduce your storage footprint. And so this kind of shows you what would happen if you didn't have single instance storage versus Retain with single instance storage, and how much space you can save. Great ability to kind of see, and you can customize this report depending on what you want to see. You can see job run averages. There's all kinds of things that you can see on this report. Okay, so let's go over and look at the audit. We do have that here, so you can see everything that's being done. So you can see today I changed the user group, I logged in, this was archived, a guest logged in. You can see all that was done on this Retain system. So a lot of stuff has been done here, and you can view that to be able to see who's accessed the system, what they've accessed. Let's talk a little bit about deletion management. What's nice here is that you have the ability to delete a mailbox if you need to out of the archive. This is important for privacy issues as well. If there's mailboxes that may have been archived that shouldn't be archived anymore, you can delete them from there. Then from here you can place a litigation hold on an entire mailbox. All you do is find that mailbox that you want to do that. You'd place that litigation hold there, hit save, or hit OK, and now that's being placed on hold. That mailbox is now on hold until you take it off hold, so nothing is going to be deleted, even if it reaches that policy. So that's a little bit about some of the core functionality of Retain, how that works. There's more as well, but that's some of the things that I wanted to show here. Let me show you now. Let's do a search and some browsing to see how it would look. So when a user logs in, they're gonna see a view similar to this, where they're gonna be able to see all their messages, all their folders. Let's get something. Let's go back a little bit. So they'll be able to see the messages that are in their inbox and each of their folders as well. Let's just see if we have any in here. Let's get cabinet that may have something here. Oh, not too much in this particular. This is a demo, so it's not going to show much. But everything is archived in this central archive. A user is going to be able to browse their personal archive. They can do different things based on the rights that are given to them, like restore back to the live mailbox. So they could, this message that we saw, we could restore that back to the live inbox. Now it's going to be in their live system. It's going to appear as it did before. And then, of course, an administrator can browse the entire archive and other named users can do the things that they are granted. What's great here, when I talk about unified archiving, one of the powerful functions of that is being able to view everything from one central location. So as I start typing in, it's going to start to auto-suggest things that are in the archive, and then it's going to highlight in the search results those terms that I've searched. So as you can see here, I search for the word test. It's going to show me anything that had the word test in it, and it's going to highlight that in the search results, making that search easy and being able to find those results easy. You can drill down and specify by type. Right now it's going to show everything, but you could say, okay, I only want to see, let's see what we can get. Some likes or chats, some messages. It's going a little slow today. This is a demo server. Sometimes that goes a little slow. So you can see here that here came across some text messages, some BBM messages, and here's some Facebook conversations. So you can see that everything is brought into that one central archive. You don't have to search, have one solution for searching email, one solution for searching social, and one for mobile. No, it's all in one central archive, and you can quickly and easily get to that, making it easy for you to search that archive and be in compliance and make an archive more than just something that's set in the corner and you forget about it. It's a living and breathing thing where you can quickly and easily get to your data and see what's going on in your organization. And then you also have this ability to do advanced searches. So with advanced searches, you can actually add different criteria. So you can say, okay, I want to see everything that has a litigation hold on it. I don't know if I have anything in this one. You can do that search. You could save that search. You can share that search as well, or you can delete that query. And then also we can give the ability to hide duplicate messages. So So here's some examples of some queries that were done. Oh, there came some litigation holds right here. So all of these messages are on litigation hold. They can't be deleted until that litigation hold ends. But with hiding duplicate messages, it's going to reduce your search results because if it's in multiple mailboxes, it could show up in multiple places. So by hiding those duplicate results, it makes it that much easier. So from here, you could place, these are obviously on litigation hold already, but you could place these on litigation hold. You could put them in a confidential state. You can tag them, and these tags can be viewable by everyone, or they can be confidential. And you can also search tags. That's another search item you could add. You could forward these messages. You could export them to a PDF for that standalone viewer. You could restore them back to the live system. So just some other things you could search for. You can search for date, received, confidential. You can search for the type. You can search content, attachment size, when it was opened, read, private. We give you powerful functionality to be able to search the archive and be able to get the search results and see what's in your archive, to be able to make sure that that you know what's going on, that you're compliant, and that you can quickly and easily get to that in case of litigation or in case of an audit. So Retain truly does give you the ability to comply with regulations and be prepared for litigation or audits or anything of that nature. So okay, let's go back. We're going to finish up. Looks like there's a couple of questions that we're going to get to here. If you do have a question, feel free to put that through in the question panel. Let's continue on. I want to just summarize here and just talk about those 8 key features, as we talked about, is that ability to archive multi-platform mixed environment in one central unified archive. I didn't touch on this, but Retain has the ability to be deployed on-premise and in your own system, or you have the ability to have a cloud version, which the cloud, we have our own data centers, a private cloud. You can put it in a public cloud like AWS, or we have partners that have strategically located cloud systems depending on your needs. If you need something that meets certain requirements or stays within a certain geographic area, Retain gives you the ability to do that. I touched a little bit about intelligent archiving, the idea that nothing is lost, everything is archived and brought into the Retain system, including attachments, appointments, Facebook, Twitter messages, social media messages, mobile messages, and we tie directly to those systems. It's not like an SMTP forwarding type thing. It's just a direct integration, ensuring that nothing's lost and everything is brought over. Then, of course, there's that flexible archive access via the web interface, the email plugin, mobile app, or that offline viewer. You have those tagging that we talked about, the ability to be able to archive, to migrate your email. We talked on that, and then also we have the ability to, through integration with TDS, to migrate your archive. So if you're on another archiving solution and you want to come over to Retain, we have the ability to do that. And of course, important is those built-in e-discovery tools that we touched on. And then finally, there's this ability to connect to your file systems. We don't archive files, but if you want to be able to do a search of your file systems, you can directly from Retain. You just, as long as it has an index, say it's SharePoint or Laserfish or other ECM system, you can tie to that system and do that search that we showed you. It'll search those messages as well if you want to be able to do that. So what are the next steps? What should you be doing now? I would say to go out and get a price quote or a personalized demo to see how it will work in your organization. You can do that by visiting retainarchiving.com. You can also contact us. I would encourage you to get a quote, see how this solution can work for you and the pricing for it. It'll help you. As we talked about, we want to win your business. We want you to see how easy archiving can be and how you can quickly and easily become compliant and make sure that you have the data when and where you need it. Thanks everyone for being here. Let's get to some of your questions here. First is, let's see, about social media. Can I archive something as personal as social media? Good question. Really, when we're talking about social media archiving, we're not talking about the personal social media. It's really everything when it comes to your corporate social media account, and then of course any official communication. So if you are archiving personal social media communication, probably not the best thing to do, but for those official accounts, that's what we'd do. Okay, let's see. For mobile devices, how does it work with multiple mobile devices? So if a user has multiple mobile devices and you want to archive that, that's not a problem. It's priced per mobile device. So if a person has, say, multiple phones, which is pretty common, it's all priced per device. So it's based on number of devices that you want to archive, not based on users. Okay, let's see what else here. How is it priced? So I don't have pricing for you on this call just because it depends on industry and number of users and whatnot. But what it's based on is for email, it's based on number of users. So it doesn't matter how many email platforms you have, it's just how many users you have. And then for social media, it's based on number of records. And then for mobile, it's based on number of devices. And we're priced pretty competitively. Once again, I'd encourage you to get a quote for how it could work for your organization. Okay, that looks like all the questions we have for now. Thanks everyone for being here and for your interest in this archiving webinar about for healthcare. Once again, if you do have any questions that we didn't get to, feel free to reach out to us. And thanks again for being here and for your interest in this webinar. We hope to see you on the next one. Thanks everyone.